Welcome viewers. Today I will be discussing about organizational design options with a specific focus on adhocracy. Here the focus is on collateral form and how it institutionalizes innovation. Further I will be discussing about the network structure and with few examples of adhocracy that will play role in designing the future organizations. What is a collateral form of organizational structure? We have discussed the value of entrepreneurship, and it is now in fashion to start up a new company. Youngsters are more pro towards taking risk, to be innovative, to have their own company. So now entrepreneurship has become a buzzword, and the simple structure is ideal mechanism within which the entrepreneurs can flourish, that we have discussed earlier. But the large companies need not be left out, like the General Electric, DuPont, IBM, AT&T are all experimenting with the collateral design and allow intrapreneuring, that is creating the spirit of entrepreneurship within the organization alongside a large bureaucratic setup. So, collateral form of structure is a loosely structured organic design, flexible design, contextualize along with or to coexist side by side with the bureaucracy or bureaucratic structure on a permanent basis. They are typically small teams that are given independence, autonomy, freedom, and as well as access to resources. They can pursue their own ideas without rules and approvals from multiple levels of management as required in bureaucracies. That means they are almost free to take decisions, and they need not look for approvals. In contrast to the bureaucracy, collateral forms are designed to solve organization structural problems, effectively using the flexibility to solve ill structured problems. What is the strength of collateral form of organizational structure? Their innovative ideas can be tried to solve unique problems. If they fail, the cost of overall organizations are relatively small. There are advantages from bureaucracy of high efficiency through standardization. At the same time, there is flexibility from entrepreneurship. So, by creating adhocracies within bureaucracy, a large corporation can stimulate creativity and innovation, cut product development time, and hold on to bright and achievement oriented employees who might otherwise leave to work for another firm. Collateral structure is very important to retain talent, younger talent. It is stimulating creativity, innovation. It will give freedom to bring in new ideas, and there are also disadvantages of this collateral form of structure, which is flexibility within rigidity. So, meshing bureaucracy and organic units create clash of culture, one valuing order, other giving freedom or flexibility. The primary challenge lies with the top management as in the bureaucracy. While entrepreneuring is currently fashionable and there is high potential for breakthrough innovation, it is usually difficult for top management to lose its centralized control. It takes a unique type of top management which itself has been nurtured in bureaucracies, rules, checks and balances, and intolerance for failure to leave the entrepreneurial unit alone and let them take risk and make mistakes. There are few examples of collateral form like 3M, which institutionalizes innovation. There are few examples, few companies that have succeeded like 3M in creating an organizational structure which stimulates innovation among its scientific and engineering personnel. 3M is a huge company which employs 82,000 people, more than 6,000 of whom are scientists and engineers, with sales in excess of 750 billion rupees a year, and it has a product line that encompasses some 60,000 items. New products are generated extremely high rate of more than 200 a year from the research labs. The company does a pretty good job of achieving its goals, and if there is a single secret of 3M's success, it is company's ability to stimulate entrepreneurship among its scientists and engineers. the professionals who are working for the success of the company. 3M's dozens of divisions are organized into groups, and these groups are divided into sectors or categories. The structure is highly decentralized. Researchers are given a great deal of freedom with their projects. 3M has a policy of allowing its researchers to spend up to 15% of the time on the project of their own choice. And moreover, the company encourages its employees to take risk and reward them well when they succeed. 3M creates an entrepreneurial climate, means having a different breed of employees. As they are interested to change and make things happen, 3M researchers do not really accept rules and regulations. They challenge authority, ask embarrassing questions, circumvent the chain of command, often behave in ways which are congruent with bureaucracy. 3M considers these disruptions are small price to pay to keep pace with innovation within the overall mechanistic structure. A new form of organizational design is currently gaining popularity, allowing greater flexibility in response to technology, fashion, or low cost foreign competition. Is a network structure, has a small central organization that relies on other organizations to perform manufacturing, distribution, marketing, and crucial business functions on a contractual basis. Firms like Nike have found that they can set millions of dollars of products every year and earn a huge return. A few are manufacturing facilities of their own, only a few employees. The features of network structure, they connect with the independent designs, manufacturers, commissioned sales representatives or the like to perform on a contract basis the functions they need. The network stands in sharp contrast to traditional structures that are multiple vertical lines of management where organization seeks to control their destiny through ownership. In such organizations, research and development is done in house, production occurs in company owned manufacturing plants, sales, marketing, and are performed by their own employees. To support all these, management has to employ extra personnel such as accountants, human resources specialists, and lawyers. In the network structure, most of these functions are brought outside the organization, which gives management a high degree of flexibility and allows organizations to concentrate on what it does best. The most firms, that is focusing on design and manufacturing and buying manufacturing capability outside. So, one example of network structure is management contract out all the employees, all the primary functions of business. The core of the network organization is a small group of executives, and their job is to oversee directly any activity that are done in house and to coordinate relationship with other organizations that manufacture, distribute, and perform other crucial functions for the network organization. The dotted lines represent those contractual relationships. Managers in the network structure, they spend most of their time to coordinate and control external relationship. Now, you can see that between the executive group, there is an independent research and development consulting firm. There are advertising agencies, there are commissioned sales representatives. So, these are being coordinated by the executive group. There are also certain disadvantages of network organizations. Not appropriate for all endeavors. First, industrial companies like the toy and apparel firm, which requires high flexibility in order to respond quickly to the fashion change. Firms manufacturing operations require low cost labor that is available only outside the country, can be best utilized by contracting with the foreign suppliers. On the negative side, management and network structure lack the close control of manufacturing operations that exist in most traditional organizations. Reliability of supply is less predictable. Finally, any innovation in design that a network organization acquires is susceptible to be ripped off. It is very difficult if not impossible, to closely guard innovations that are under the discretion of management in another organization. Due to access and availability of communication network, interacting and communicating with other organizations is becoming an increasingly viable alternative. Certain examples of adhocracy: the design of adhocratic structures is limited only by creativity of the designers. But in addition to those designs, we have already discussed three of the other examples of adhocracies which have gained popularity. These are uh, task forces, committee structures, and the collegial structure. So, let us highlight on what a task structure is and how they form an important part of adhocracy. The task force is a temporary structure which is formed to accomplish a specific, well defined complex task that involves a number of organizational subunits. The task force problems which an organization encounters during organizational change, when there is problem at hand, when there are issues which can destroy the future performance of an organization, which can be debilitating. So, those issues can be like the internal complaints committee or the disciplinary action committee. These are all task forces. Or say if there is a provision for coming up with a new project, so there are task forces which can take up such issues. So, members serve on the task force until its goal is achieved, at which time the task force is disbanded. It can be scaled down version of temporary metric structure or a temporary version of organic appendage in the collateral form. The members move on to the new task force, return to the permanent home or the department functional unit in the organization, or leave the organization. When an organization is confronted with a task whose success is critical to the success of organization, which has specific time frame and performance standards, is unique and unfamiliar and requires functions that are interdependent, a task force can be desirable. So, these conditions explain why Ford Motor Company went to task force concept in the early 1980s to develop Taurus. Dubbed as Team Taurus, this task force took up completely different approach than traditionally followed in the US auto industry. In the past, Ford has developed the cars sequentially. First designed, drew them, then engineers made it to work, then manufacturing figured out how to build it, and finally service looked for some ways to fix it. Every time the job was handed to the next department and the next unit discovered something that did not like and made changes. This lack of coordination tended to produce defective cars, which each department blamed the other department for any problem which has been overlooked in the previous manufacturing process. So, Team Taurus or the task force included representatives from all various units of planning, designing, engineering, advertising, public relations, manufacturing, and even outside suppliers that made incidental parts. So, they worked together from beginning to create a car that could completely head on in terms of quality and design with the best from Japan and Europe. When the project was accomplished in 1985, Team Taurus was disbanded. The task force was formed, product designing, product development. They have given their suggestions. Finally, when the project was successfully accomplished, the team disbanded. So, the Team Taurus task force, it proved to be highly effective. The Ford Taurus and its sister, the Mercury Stable, have been products that have sold almost as fast as they could be produced. Consumer reports rated the Taurus higher than any other domestic car as it has ever tested. Noted that Ford exploited the major advantages of the task force. It allowed the company to be adaptive, yet at the same time maintain its efficient bureaucracy. By attacking task force structure to the mechanistic mainframe, organizations like Ford can get the best of both worlds, flexibility and efficiency. The next type of adhocracy is the committee form. Another example of adhocracy is the committee form of structure. Committee structures can be highly effective when it is desired that the broad range of experience and background to be brought to bear a decision. Those who will be affected by decisions are allowed to be represented. It is believed that desirable to spread the workload or during periods of management transition when no single individual is ready to lead the organization. Committees are temporary or permanent. The temporary committee is one and the same with a task force. The permanent committees, however, facilitates bringing together diverse inputs like task force, plus the stability and consistency of the metrics. When permanent committees are established at the top level of organizations, we frequently refer to the positions as forming an executive group. Such a structure brings diverse perspectives into top level decision making and permits the heterogeneous task of chief executives job to be divided up and parceled out according to background and skills of executive group. For example, DuPont has utilized executive concept for a number of decades. General Electric similarly uses a 3% management committee. Each person still retains lines of authority and they form working group to form long range strategic problems. There is another form which is called collegial form. This structure of adhocracy is fashionable mostly in universities, research labs and other professional organizations. Its unique characteristic is full democracy in making all important decisions. This is in contrast to the task force or committee structure that utilizes representative decision making. The best example is most widespread is the collegial structure is design of academic departments in major universities. All key decisions are made by departments. Typically, even the departmental head carries no more weight than his or her only one vote. The selection of new member, contract renewals, allocation of teaching assignments, performance appraisals, granting of tenure, modification in curriculum, grading policies, similar decisions are being made by the department as a whole. So, the collegial structure represents utmost decentralization. In universities, faculty members act with only minimal guidelines. These guidelines are the university policies and procedures which tend to allow great deal of autonomy to department. In the research units for Eastman Kodak and Bell Labs, there is a similar kind of collegial structure. It provides employees with extremely high autonomy, minimum formalization, collegial decision making or consensual decision making which allows highly skilled professionals to adapt rapidly to changing needs of their work. And now we can also look at two contemporary views on how organizations in future years will be. Management guru Peter Drucker and Tom Peters both agree that future organizations are going to be flatter, less hierarchical and more decentralized. In a word, they are going to be more adhocratic. So, adhocracy is the new rule of the future organizations. Whether Drucker and Peters are right is another issue, but it is interesting to consider how they will arrive at their conclusion and the specific form they think future organizations will take. What we see, Drucker essentially proposes technology explanation. Organizations in future will look more like a large orchestra with the traditional pyramid type of corporate bureaucracy become information based. An information based technology will require adhocracy. Drucker sees computer technology changing the composition of tomorrow's organization. Knowledge based organizations will be composed largely of specialists who direct and discipline their own performance through organized feedback from colleagues, customers and headquarters. So, these organizations will function much like a symphony orchestra. Instead of doing things sequentially, research and development, manufacturing, marketing, they will all be done in synchrony. So, clearly the common objective will be to allow the chief executive officers to conduct directly hundreds of employees. CEOs will be able to have a wide span of control because each employee will be a specialist who knows his or her part. There is an environmental uncertainty proposition or argument. Unprecedented change and certainty in the environment will require organizational impermanence. So, they thrive on chaos and sees the world in a state of revolutionary change. Every business has to continue to confront new competitors. In many cases, management does not even know where the competitor will come from. Add the uncertainty created by such things as exchange rate, interest rate, rate of inflation, prices of energy, and you have constantly changing business environment. So, the organizations will be low in complexity. Top managers will set the tone by breaking down both vertical, horizontal barriers and functional walls. Managers will feel comfortable when they leapfrog 2 or 3 levels in the organization to communicate with other members, crossing traditional hierarchical boundary or functional boundary to get things done very quickly. And organizations will be decentralized with employees serving on multiple tasks for teams that will focus on improvement of quality and productivity. And the organizations will be fluid, action oriented, they adapt quickly to the environment, and of course, so doing this it will become a form of purposeful or focused anarchy. Now, it is nice in the theory, but do you see the disparity between conclusion drawn from bureaucracy and discretion of these two modules? Regarding bureaucracy, we said that it was thriving inevitably and dominant structural form. In current discussion, however, we have described a variety of organizations which use flexibility or adhocracy and have implied that it is found in some form in most dynamic environment. While flexibility is necessary for survival, both these observations are correct. However, they are not contradictions. Usage in a wide range of organizations should not be confused with wide acceptance. Adhocracies are the dominant structure in only a small minority of industries. The second one is the form is used in most popularly as an adjunct to bureaucracy. Third, adhocracies require top management to give up control while face strong constant resistance. Finally, where adhocracy is found, it is more often accurate to conceive of it as a vehicle propelling organizations towards bureaucracy or failure rather than an ongoing structure. One must be careful in generalizing from a very few examples. So, it is true that many electronic firms, small organizations, aerospace companies, most research labs and almost all think tanks, consulting firms are organized around adhocracies. But these examples also comprise basically the entire set of adhocracies. It is like adhocracy is most likely to emerge as an additional to or addendum to the bureaucratic form. At times, survival will demand that the bureaucratic organizations respond quickly or rapidly to change. Management does this in a two-way. First, it makes wider use of professional bureaucracy. The second one is it uses organic appendages like task force to foster innovation and flexibility. So, essentially allowed those in power to maintain control. Some form of adhocracies appear to require management give up its control. We would argue that such designs will be strongly resisted by top management. For example, experience with collateral firms finds that autonomy of intrapreneurial units may not be extensive as theory suggests. One venture capitalist put it, even the best organizations cannot keep management fingers out in the pie. It has also been noted that Theory Z type of organizations give the appearance of reducing top management's control. Employees' psychological commitment to Theory Z organizations for his or her work life make the employees more likely to tolerate conditions about which he or she might otherwise complain. Employees' power is reduced through job rotation. Management chooses the size of work team, the members who will be on the each team, and the current job rotation patterns between teams ensures that no individuals or team gains too much influence. Perhaps most importantly, adhocracy does emerge as dominant structure in organizations. Do not expect it to stay that way long. Success and progression in life cycle drive the organization towards stability and standardization. As an organization settles on what it does best, it is encouraged to repeat these activities: standardization, differentiation, formalization results. Of course, there is another alternative. Organizations may die, adhocracies will exist in dynamic environment. Unfortunately, the risk of failure is great. Adhocracies therefore are more vulnerable than bureaucracies. At the societal level, organizations that succeed take on bureaucratic characteristics. Change in consumer taste, breakthrough by competitors and the likes are threat to survival. Those that fail may be summarized best by its anecdote. Our conclusion from the previous discussion: bureaucracies are the dominant structural forms, adhocracies are few in number. Adhocratic form is anything other than structural design, that is right from organizations to certain stage in their life cycle or as an addendum to bureaucracy. So, overall, it has been suggested that adhocracy should rarely be an organization's dominant structure, that is unlikely to be tomorrow's primary structural form. To summarize the discussion, what bureaucracy was to the mechanistic model, adhocracy is to the organic model. Adhocracy is a rapidly changing, adaptive, usually temporary system which is organized around problems to be solved. Groups of relative strangers with diverse professional skills. Adhocracies are excellent vehicles for responding to change, facilitating innovation, coordinating diverse specialists. However, they create conflict and tend to be less efficient than bureaucracies. Some examples of adhocracies are like it includes matrix type, theory Z, a collateral form, network, task force, committees, designs, collegial form. When should these type of designs be considered? When there is a diverse, changing, high risk strategy, or where technology is non-routine and the environment is dynamic and complex. It is also preferred structural design when an organization is in the formative years of its life cycle. So, despite attention given to adhocracies in recent years, it continues to be a typical form of organization, and adhocracies are the dominant structures in only a few of minorities of industries. When used, it is usually an adjunct to bureaucracy. Organizations that are adhocratic in their early years tend to evolve into bureaucracies or die off. Concluding the discussion here, we started understanding the concept of collateral form, adhocracies, and then we discussed about the network structure. Later, we elaborated other examples of adhocracy, namely the task force, committees, designs, and collegial forms of structures. Finally, summarizing the discussion by the role and its extent adhocracies would play in design of future organizations. Thank you.